Well, hi, how are you? I'm good. Thanks so much for asking. It really means a lot to me. Welcome over to the Neverlanders B-Sides. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I haven't shared with a lot of people. Why? Because what I'm going to tell you guys, there's a little not a stigmatism, it's not something in your eye. There's stigma behind people sharing this sort of information, and part of that, I think, is just exists because for some people it might sound a little crazy. So the reason why I've decided to upload some content talking about this is because I'm one of these individuals where once I get into something, I really like to, I go heavy, I go hard at it. I want to understand everything there is about it. And because I've had near-death experience in my past, I've spent a lot of time watching near-death experience videos on YouTube, and it's a seasonal thing for me. I kind of go to it for comfort. And for those of you that are not aware, we recently lost my father-in-law, and it's been quite honestly awful. Like, it's been terrible. Going and watching the N.D.E videos has brought me comfort. And so I decided that it was time for me to share my N.D.E with you guys.
Oh, it's the Neverlander! Oh my goodness!
So please don't judge. Or judge. I don't care. I don't know most of you, so really it doesn't mean much to me. But anyway, so my near-death experience took place roughly 40 years ago, when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And at the time, I didn't really think anything of it. In fact, there was some time that had passed that allowed me to digest what had taken place later on as I got older. And so what had happened for me is a little bit different than a traditional near-death experience. I wasn't outside of my body looking down on an operating table. I didn't see this, tunnel of light. That doesn't mean that doesn't exist, but my experience took place, I believe, because I was saved from something that would have been tragic. When I was a kid, back in the 80s, it was pretty normal for parents, at least in the neighborhood that I grew up in, to hang out with one another. And my mom and dad would go across the street and play cards with the neighbors. They'd hang out and just chat it up, talk about life. And it was a lot of fun for me because I got to hang out with other kids in the neighborhood when that took place at these houses. And but there was a lot of times where my parents would send me home, or I'd be home by myself. Just the way that it was in the 80s. And one particular night, I was home with my dad, and my mom was across the street at one of the neighbors' houses. And BMXing was a really popular thing alongside skateboarding. And so as a child who was 7 or 8 years old, I was very inventive, and a lot of times I would shoot down our driveway, out into the street, and up another neighbor's driveway, pretending that was like a ramp, a half pipe, and I'd go to the top and I'd turn, and it was just something that was fun for me. And on a evening that my dad said, go get your mom across the street, tell her it's time to come home, or whatever was I was instructed with at the time, I immediately opened the garage, got on my bike, shot out in the street, rode across, went up the driveway, rode across to the next house to the left of the driveway that I went up, where my mom was, knocked on the door, and in some creative way, I imagine I was like, hey, it's time for my mom to come home. So at that point, I remember waiting at the door for her, and then as she was saying her goodbye, I kind of got on my bike and I rode ahead of her, and I went down that neighbor's driveway. I made an immediate left along the sidewalk, and I looped up the next neighbor's driveway and shot out into the street. And at the time, there was a car coming, and I believe it was a Bronco. I think it was an SUV. It was a big car, and I remember just seeing headlights, and I remember them going from like 2 bright lights to 1. So as those lights became 1, I just remember all of a sudden being enveloped by light. I had this light all around me, and I remember just being there and not feeling weird about it, not being like, there was no pain, there was nothing where I was like, oh, this is strange, this is what's happening to me. And I do remember it felt like I was inside of this protected egg, if you will. It was like egg-shaped. And I remember looking down, like wanting to see my feet, and there was nothing there, and it was like I was just eyeballs floating is the best way that I can explain it. And I was conscious, I was aware, I was inside of this thing, and but I wasn't scared, I wasn't excited, it just was like, I just knew that this is what was happening. And so nothing felt odd about it. It was instantaneous. There was no like transition. It was just all of a sudden, it was like this light, oh look, there's light, and then I was in this thing. And my mom, I later learned, was passing the backside of the car so she saw me dart out in front of it, and from her purview, she could see. She was standing on the right side of the car, almost across the street on the other side, and she could see me go right in front of the car, and the car just kept going. There were never like an attempt to stop. There was no skidding. There was nothing like that, and she lost it. She absolutely lost it, and she ran to the garage. She was crying and screaming, and my dad had met her, and she was like, I saw him get hit by a car. Oh my God, he got hit. And she was so convinced that I was hit by the car, and I didn't see her walk. I just all of a sudden, in this egg that I was in, it was kind of like there was this opening that took place, almost like clouds, right? Like the egg was, the texture of it was almost like being inside of like just a cloud. Like there was almost no texture, but you couldn't see anything. And it was white, but it was almost like a yellow at the same time, like an off-white. And then all of a sudden it was like where I was looking, it like opened up. It opened up where I could see me riding my bike, getting off my bike, going up into my parents' garage and setting the bike down and be like, Mom, I'm here. Look, I'm fine. And she's like, no, I saw you get hit by that car. There's no way that car missed you. And I remember it being like a very traumatic moment for her, but for me, I was like, but I'm okay. And even though I was watching that, I'm looking at this and I'm like, this just, everything about it seemed like normal. There was nothing weird. It was just an immediate acceptance and just like, this is what's happening. No fear again, nothing that was that made me feel like I shouldn't be there. And I was a very like fearful kid. I was afraid to talk to strangers. I was the kid that wouldn't go ask for a straw for my soda because God forbid I have to interact with somebody. I was afraid of roller coasters until I was 17. I wouldn't even go on Alice in Wonderland at Disneyland because there was a cave and I didn't know what was in there. So I'm just trying to paint the picture that you would think that as a kid that kind of had that sort of fear that there would be something that would be like, well, this is odd. I've never experienced this. This is not normal. But the reality of it is I remember just it feeling like it was supposed to happen. So as I was watching my mom and my dad, she was kind of like hugged into him, crying, had her hands in her face, and I'm just like, look, I'm here, everything's fine. And then I looked to the left, and the same thing kind of happened where it was like there was this dissolve where now this side of the egg that I was in kind of opened up, and I saw the brake lights of the Bronco, the SUV, whatever it was. Could have been a Blazer. Felt like it was like a tan, like a brownish color. And I saw the lights light up as it hit the end of the street. At the end of the street I lived on, it came to a T. You had to go left or right about 300 yards away from my house. And I just remember seeing those lights, and then it was over. I don't recall anything happening. I don't recall being put back in my body. I don't recall anything for like a period of time. I remember talking to my mom about what had happened and her sharing with our family. Like, I saw Scotty, it's what she called me, get hit by this car. And I was just like, this experience was almost, except for what I had encountered there in the middle of the street, which, again, that's where I was observing it, was right there in the middle of the street. No feet, just this being. And all of a sudden, I remember having conversations with my mom, like, well, yeah, this took place. And finally, one day, I explained to her, like, what I had encountered. And it didn't freak her out, per se. She was more like, there's absolutely no way that car missed you. And so she was confident that I experienced something. Years go on, and I keep kind of reflecting on this moment. And then I remember telling somebody about it, I think when I was like 11 years old, and they didn't believe me. And so I didn't say anything about it for years and years and years and years and years. So there is a stigma, I think, attached with people who experience anything that is not of this world, because people, if you can't hold it, touch it, smell it, feel it, some people are like, it doesn't exist. And so the reason why I wanted to share this is not just because of what I said and what we've gone through recently, and that N.D.Es watching N.D.Es on YouTube has been something that is therapeutic for me, but I also wanted to invite others to share their experiences if it's happened for them as well. I absolutely believe that this is a temporary thing. We know that it is, right? We all deal with loved ones passing. But I also have no fear of what it's like to die because of that experience. And sure, there's times where I'm like, did that really happen? Did I dream that? What was that? But it's like the memories, the vision was so clear. Being able to see myself from a third person and talking to my mom about everything, it's as real to me as this moment is right now. With that, you might think I'm crazy. If you know me, you definitely think I'm crazy. But things happen, and I am a huge advocate of adaptation to our environment, and the things that have happened to all of us help influence in the creation of who we are. And so I'm grateful that I got to experience that. And I'd like to thank those of you that have shared your stories. By the way, if you happen to have a story on YouTube and you've uploaded it and you'd like to share that, leave a link. I would love to watch that because I do. I'm in this season right now where it's something that is very therapeutic for me. And so I'm very happy to share my story with you guys. And hopefully it gave you comfort. Or maybe you have a lot of questions. I don't know. Leave questions down below if that's the case. I'll answer them to the best of my ability. That's it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Love you guys. Appreciate you. This is why I like to end our videos by telling you, do something nice for a stranger. Love on one another and let your mom and dad know that you love them. Because life is fragile. And we all have something that we're going through. So, I love you, and have a great rest of your week. Okay. See you.